Good evening, everybody. It's the Old Wolf here with the Witch for the Witch and the Wolf Wisdom Podcast. It is Tuesday, May 24, 2022. Coming at you live from Rochester, New York. I hail the Goblin Queen. You are the first you have shared.
I hail the Goblin
We hail you. Thank you. We're having an okay night. You know, dynamics of the world around us sometimes throw that funky, fucked up energy. And yes, my brother John, we will hopefully help you de-stress. So hang in there, brother. Hang in there. As always, the first little things to get out of the way. Thank you again for joining us. As always, again, we are coming at you live from Rochester, New York. Myself and the Witch, Lady Shiya. I am the Old Wolf. The views, thoughts, expressions, etc., expressed on this podcast are mine and mine alone, and sometimes the Witch shares them, and sometimes other people shares them, but you know how that goes. Most of the music tonight will be mine, but some of it I'm going to share tonight again for those of you who haven't had a chance to experience my brothers in Broken Past and my brother Greg Carr Schumann. Both great guys, known them for years. Greg was best man at my wedding many years ago. So we've shared dynamics throughout life, not just musically. But again, we'll be getting to that a little bit later. We have a lot of people that not only support us, but that we interact and work with to different degrees. The Goblin Queen, Brother John, but others in a more dynamic sense. One of the ones I'm going to talk about first tonight is my sister, Ashley Hart. Hart's Creations. Let me tell you, she makes some incredibly fucking wicked dream catchers. There's just no other way to say it. They're incredibly beautiful. They're magical. You can't beat her pricing. We have several of them.
Yes.
Some more coming in. She did a custom Jack and Sally thing. Absolutely fucking beautiful. Incredible stuff. She's also going to be doing one for the autism event down in Port Monmouth, New Jersey, September 17th. We'll have more information coming on that down the road once the flyers are officially done. But that's going to be a big thing. Shiya, myself, the monkey, we're going to be there. Rumor has it there's actually going to be a live musical performance by some people you all may know. Just saying. Nothing officially, but yeah, there's a lot of shit in the works, and we'd love to have as many of you that can participate as possible, but I think Shiya also intends that some of this stuff we're going to make sure that we stream one way or another, so those of you that are in places, you know, let's be honest, if you're in Australia, probably not going to be a good chance that you're going to be able to fly out to New Jersey in September, you know, to support an event. We'd love it if you did, don't get me wrong, but realistically, it's not going to be the easiest thing for people who live outside the box. So we're going to try and make sure we make those elements as available for everybody as we can. And again, Ashley Hart being one of the many people that are within our circle, definitely check her out. www.facebook.com/heartscreations. Dream catchers with intention. No doubt. Definitely intention. That girl's got her shit together.
For sure.
We also have our sister, Suzanne, over at Mystical Moons, who so graciously supported us in our songwriting contest a couple of months ago. Again, incredible stuff. All types of different things, you know, from your ritual elements of crystals to, you know, specific, you know, design type of stuff that, you know, bracelets or, you know, little skulls. You know, and these are things, you know, if you're not into them, maybe you know somebody, you know, they make great gifts. But she is also somebody, again, that's been very active in the circle and has done a lot to help people over the years. And here's the beautiful thing. Just mention the Old Wolf or the Witch, Lady Shiya. 25% off your first order.
Can't
You know what I
beat
mean?
that.
So even if you just go over there and you spend a couple of bucks just as a little bit of a show of support, you're guaranteed to get a good deal right off the bat.
It's 25 cents off the dollar.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, Jesus, costs you more to fucking breathe the air these days. But that's just me. It's another rant. We also have, and again, my brother, Tattoo Tony Rodriguez. He is the leader of the band Broken Past. You can check them out at www.brokenpastnewjersey.com. You can also check them out on Facebook. He is the leader and founder of the Under My Skin for Life Foundation, which myself and Monkey are members of, which will be putting on this autism event in September. They'll be performing. Other people will be performing. So, yeah, anybody that can get out, to, the Central Jersey Shore area in September, you would love to have you. But, again, we'll talk more about that. He's also got the Under My Skin Tattoo Shop, which is an award-winning tattoo shop in the Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey. You can check them out at www.undermyskintat2.com. And finally, my brother Tony, Tony's got his fingers in a lot of things. Nobody can say that man is not fucking active. Because let me tell you, he's a single parent, runs a charity organization, runs a tattoo shop, runs a band, and runs a third entity from within his shop and studio called the Papo Sticker Company. That was kind of, named and dedicated after his father. But, long story short, he can take all that artistic element and create it into anything that you could imagine. A coffee cup, a knit hat, a leather belt to beat your romantic partner with.
Okay.
Personally, again, the only thing that limits you is your imagination. Really, that's all that limits you.
We only advise consensual beating.
But that's assumed, okay? I don't want to go peeking in anybody's fucking windows. You never know what the fuck you're gonna see.
I
know better because they're goblin queens hiding in the shadows, man.
There are goblin queens hiding.
Okay, I'm just saying.
I saw one recently.
Yes, you did. That's right. You were on a Mongo trip down the coast.
I went on a roundabout.
Yes, you did.
To help a client/friend.
Yes, yeah, and lot of great things, coming out of that whole experience. This goes back to the context, the philosophy we both talk about, but I pray for it a lot. Strength in numbers. And what better time right now to talk about the context of strength in numbers with all the insanity. A week or so ago, we had a fucking shooting up here in Buffalo. Today, as Catherine says, yes, absolutely we can pray for the families in Texas today. Yeah. This is fucking insanity. Now, it is one of the things we're going to get to in tonight's podcast, The Hitchhiker's Guide to Retrograde.
Yes.
I'm not going to blame fucking Retrograde for this, okay?
No, this is
I'm sorry. I just not. But we'll get to that. Yeah. Check out my brother, Tattoo Tony. Like I said, if you're in Jersey, you want a tattoo, you want to go see a show, or again, doesn't matter, if you live in Australia, you can get a custom sweatshirt like we did for Ash Buck.
Yes.
Anything that you could ever imagine, he'll make it and ship it to you anywhere in the world. So check out the PapoStickerCompany.com.
And it's really not stupid pricing.
Oh my God! Listen, it's cheap.
Cheap, actually.
Because most places won't touch that kind of stuff unless you're making 100 of them. Tony will do a one-off for you.
Yeah, he undercharges for it. Don't tell him I said so.
Well, he knows, but he does it purposely because he enjoys it, and it's his way of getting a lot of those dynamics to people, so that way they can enjoy. I mean, listen, again, especially, when you got Father's Day coming up, little things, you can make that custom mug. You don't have to go down to the fucking mall and pay somebody $150 to, print something on a cloth. You could fucking go on Tony's website there, send him whatever picture you want to put on it, and he'll do it for like $20-30.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And ship it to you.
Just tell him the old wolf sent you.
Well, that's a gimme. Well, actually, maybe not, because he might be Yeah, he and I love him. He made me like, oh, the wolf sent you? I'm going to have to charge you wolf tax. And then he'll bust my balls on it. No, I'm
he would be happy.
Fucking around. No, listen, Tony's a great guy. He'll take care of you.
He always likes to hear people who are part of each
He always goes out of his way. I mean, the foundation's motto is helping those in time of need.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that, Brother John. That's dancing in the mouth of madness.
Talk about that.
So yeah, we have those dynamics with, the people around us, strength in numbers. But again, we also have a lot of other things that we do. And more specifically, the witch here next to me, Lady Shiya.
Yes, hi.
Shiya's Mentorship Circle. That is the core where not only most of this was born from, but where a lot of it continues to play out and develop. There's everything from, Tara and Reiki, shadow work, dream elements. There's so many different dynamics that you can use in a self-paced element for learning or just for interaction. Again, so many different elements. She does what now? Bi-weekly, almost, every couple of weeks you're doing the live thing, the specialized mentorship circle where you're dealing with like spell casting
a little bit, but yeah, we do the occasional stuff on the lives and the chit chats and the let's talk about whatever, and we do all kind of a self-paced teaching, and you get discounts on priority readings when you come on the lives.
I see my sister Diana just switched over to YouTube. How you doing, girl? Great to see you, Barbara. Everybody, again, thank you for joining us. Again, strength in numbers. You know what I mean? It's the easiest way that we have in building any real path forward, and outside all the rhetoric and the bullshit and stuff. We got to do it together. There's just no way around it.
No, there really isn't.
Now, again, some of the little things, she does the gift certificates, and I do as well, too. So, again, somebody is looking to do some custom music. You know what I mean? We did it for Derek and Leia's ceremony, and
supposedly we're going to have some
photos and pictures.
Make a video with it.
Shiya's from Texas. She has family in Texas, but no, we are not in Texas, Barbara, if you're talking to us. A lot of friends, family in Texas. We'll be out in Texas middle of fall.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the fall. My singer on a lot of the tracks that have just been recently released, and the opening one, Just Like Me, good guy by the name of Matt Brown, lives out there in Texas, and he posted something to social media, and this is kind of, I think
it's appropriate,
at least the place to begin with this insanity that happened out there in Texas with the shooting. The first thing that we have to do, and the thing that I will stress throughout tonight, there's only one caveat that I have tonight in any of these conversations, that this fucking asshole's name is not mentioned. That's the best thing we can do in this chaos with these types of characters, shooters, whatever you want to call them, whatever the reasons. We cannot enable them with giving them notoriety. We cannot give them fame, attention, any of those dynamics. I absolutely believe with my brother Matt that is something that's incredibly important, and it's something that each and every one of us can do. We can talk about this, okay? We can have conversations about it, but we can talk about it in the context without giving this person that. Exactly, Deanna. Fuck
Agreed.
Him. Okay? So he's not going to be named in here. We're not going to talk about the dynamic of who he is per se, because we really don't know. And I got to be honest with you, in the simple dynamic of it all, the important thing is Barbara said that we have families, children and parents and people who are suffering incredibly because of, again, another round of just absolute chaos. Now, there are a lot of different dynamics in play. I said it earlier, and I was very serious about this. I'm not inclined to blame Retrograde. I'm not inclined to... You know, at some point in time, there has to be a degree, I believe at least, of personal responsibility. Now, you can make a case, oh, you know, this or oh, that, or, you know, all these other things. Yeah, Barbara, you know, metal detectors, you know, but again, you know, here is the unfortunate reality. And again, I've looked at these dynamics. I've looked at some of the deeper, uglier elements of many of these types of things. Because again, as a single parent, you know, when a lot of these started back in the days of Columbine and stuff, I had a kid in school. You know what I mean? So for me, it was a real issue that could, in theory, at any given point in time, carry over into my life. So I started looking at these things. I do not believe, like a lot of others, and even guys in law enforcement say this, that, you know, short of putting our kids into a fucking vault, all the metal detectors in the world won't stop somebody like what happened in Buffalo, what happened today, when they come in with the intent, they just come in shooting. So, yeah, the metal detector is going to go off, but they're already in mode gunning people down.
Yeah.
Now, the metal detectors would be great to keep the kids from bringing in the guns and doing something stupid like shooting themselves in the foot or maybe selling them, but it's not realistically going to stop somebody who has, for whatever reason, decided that they're going to act out like this. They're going to come in, they're going to shoot at whatever
is in their way.
Is not only in their way, but whatever they are focused on. Mm-hmm. You know, again, in Buffalo, by the kid's own admission, he was looking to target people of color. But he also shot white people in the process. Okay. Now, this doesn't justify anything. This doesn't make it any less horrendous. But details do matter within the dynamics of trying to understand patterns of things. Where can we adapt, adjust, as Barbara says, you know, again, to protect our children, to protect our families. And I see my sister Suzanne is here. Welcome. Great to see you. Oregon is a beautiful place. So we welcome everybody from all over the world.
Hey, Suzanne, hey.
But the dynamic becomes very, very tricky because Suzanne, you know, again, to some degrees, and this is the unfortunate reality that seems to happen every fucking time a tragedy happens, both sides of the spectrum will spin it. You have one end of the spectrum talking about, like you said, yeah, let's take the guns away from everybody. But guess what? Legal guns are really not the problem, okay? Because there's so many of them that you're not going to really make a dent in any of the elements.
Yeah.
Now, the other side of it, and I think you wonder why the active shooter is never left alive to tell what or why. Well, it depends on the situation. The kid in Buffalo, they casually walked out of the parking lot, so we can have a conversation with him. But more times than not, it's just some spun dynamic. The kid in Buffalo was because he was consumed by, you know, hatred and disconnect and just this really deep, ugly element that, you know, for whatever reason, he felt there was no other way to translate it. We don't know what the dynamics are. You know, the little things that I have read suggested that he killed a family member, shot his grandmother or something, then went to the school. You know what I mean? There are so many different dynamics. Now, again, listen, some of this, again, is systemic because a lot of it is cries for attention. Again, I'm not saying this justifies it, but when you look at some of these kids and what's going on, they don't feel that they have anywhere to go, that this is the only way to express themselves. So that's a problem that we have to look at, not only as parents, but as a society.
Yep.
And, you know, as mentioned, you know, taking a look at some of the dynamics within mental health. But Suzanne, you're absolutely right. You know, as a single woman living alone, you have fear. So where do we balance the dynamics so that way we don't have to give up our constitutional rights
Yeah.
But we also don't have to live with fear. And I think, again, if we have an honest conversation about it, there is no simple solution, because you're going to have bad apples, you're going to have bad actors, you're going to have bad shit that transforms otherwise normal people into fucking monsters in any given moment for any number of reasons, be it racism, be it mental illness, be it abuse. You know, again, there are a lot of dynamics in play that coming up with a consistent platform that says this is somehow going to change things, I don't know. I don't see that it is realistic. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. I would love to see, you know, at least, and, you know, Brother John, you know, made a context, you know, armed security with military training. You know what I mean? We have a military, we should use it. Now, again, a lot of people will freak out and start screaming about, oh, you know, but you know what? Not unlike any other type of situation, if you have epidemic elements of violence, and I don't care if it's gun violence or this violence, violence in general, you have to do something about it or it spreads. We've seen this happen in inner cities. And it's not a black thing. It's not a white thing. It's not a Hispanic thing. It's not an Asian thing. It's a human thing. Okay? Yeah. And these dynamics play out all over the fucking world. They're not unique to just us. They are unique to elements of, again, poverty, okay, lack of education, lack of viable support systems. You know, these are some of the dynamics, again, you know, that we have to now address in this new reality. And, you know, as previously mentioned, Sister Ashley Hart, Heart's Creations. See, you missed it. I did your whole promo and stuff like that, and you weren't here to bask in the glory. See, I feel bad. Maybe we should do it again.
Absolutely.
Well, no, then we're yes, and then we have my sister, Ashley Hart, and Heart's Creations, Dream Catchers with Intention. Check her out, www.facebook.com/Hearts Creation.
HARTS.
Thank you.
Kind of a play on her last name and the heart that resides within the
magical. See, I had to just plug you again, hon.
I mean, she deserves it. She does some amazing
little
work.
distraction from the dynamics of this horror in Texas. But here's the thing, you know, to some degrees, I think we have to. We have to vocalize it in one dynamic because, you know, carrying it around, you know, it's like walking around with a pile of dog shit in your pocket. Who the fuck wants to do it? It just stinks. It's messy. In many ways, better to kind of dump it out. You know what I mean? It's not going to change anything. You know, and we're incredibly blessed that we can have this conversation. It's not one of our children.
Honestly, though,
you know, and that's horrible, but that's the world that we live in. So we have the unique ability to look at this from the outside and say, hey, what can we do to try and stop some of this?
My honest feel is that the parents of, if you have one of these kids that are rampaging, whatever, the parents get charged with murder.
You know, I don't know how I feel about that because despite a parent's best efforts, listen, sometimes children go sideways. People go sideways. I'm sure Hitler's parents did not program him for the Holocaust.
But
so
at the same point, or whoever they got the gun from, they get charged.
Listen, I don't know about murder. I do believe that we should have a better system of accountability. Yeah. You know what I mean? As a parent,
there has to be some kind of a deterrent accountability.
But, you know, as mentioned, and Suzanne says this, guns are everywhere. So if they don't get it here, they're going to get it there. And here's the other dynamic. If it's not a gun, it's a sledgehammer, it's a knife.
Well, I'll tell you
it's a fucking yo-yo.
It was a knife.
It's a fucking cinder block off a fucking interstate high. You know what I mean? Just violence is violence.
Yeah.
The guns make it more brutal and a bigger area of effect, and obviously, it's also a trigger. Well, let's be honest. it's a trigger point within our society.
Yeah.
In the aspect of politics, you have right wing, which is traditionally gun rights, Second Amendment, and then you have the left side, which, unfortunately has been getting, the image of wanting to defund the police and take all guns away, which I don't believe is true, but I understand why it's translated that way, because you get too many politicians going out there being like, oh, do da 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 da. And it's not real, because it's not an honest solution. It's not going to change anything. It just sounds good on TV.
If you take away the guns from the law-abiding citizens, then only criminals will have guns, and then we're fucked.
Listen, I don't think any law-abiding citizen in any given day of the week is about to give up their guns. There's no quicker way to cause a larger scale conflict than I think to try and come in there. It's never going to happen. The context of our country was built upon these things. Like it or not, right or wrong, it is what it is. And to try and approach it otherwise, or try to pretend that it's something different, I think is stupidity and futile. Okay? You have to deal with it honestly for what it is. You have to find a middle ground that says, you know what, honest Americans, honest people should have the right, as is guaranteed within our Constitution, to own and bear arms. But we have to have a little bit of a system that says, hey, listen, and I'll go back to Brother John's thing. If you have been, I think, even remotely, like, again, if you get brought up on domestic violence charges more than once, that should prohibit you. Boom. Sorry, you gave up your fucking right because you've proven that you're violent. Same type of thing. If you're a child molester, if you're a convicted felon, okay, and I'm talking about violent crimes, okay? I'm not talking, about the person who wrote 50 bad checks in desperation to try and stop their house from getting foreclosed on and they got caught with a felony charge. That's a lot different than fucking Bob the molester that went around molesting little girls for 7 years until they could figure out who the fuck he was, because he was the local priest down the road that hid behind the church. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud?
That was your outside voice. But now it's not just the priest. Now it's the Southern Baptist Convention.
Now listen, and Shannon hits on a great point too. We need to be taking mental health and bullying more seriously.
Big time. It's
been a problem for years and for a long time. And I remember when I grew up, okay, and I'm going to be really blunt about it, it was encouraged. It was a context of your manhood, okay? You didn't cry. You had to stand up and you fight. You took your licks, you know what I mean, in many elements. And I'm not just talking, again, within the limited experiences of my childhood. I'm talking in general, across the board. You see this in England, you'll see it in Australia, you see it in China, you see it across the board. It is a lot of times dismissed as rites of passage. You know what I mean? But there is a dynamic within our cultures that does not take care of it. It lets it go. Oh, it's locker room talk. Oh, boys will be boys. Bullshit. There has to be a line. There has to be lines for these things for the greater good, okay? And it's not to take away anybody's freedoms, but if we don't, this is the chaos that we get. So there has to be a better ground, a better middle ground. That's just me, you know what I mean? And, John's right, it has to be proven in a court of law, but to some degrees the legal system fails a lot. So, I'm sorry, but again, just because maybe the court hasn't been able to or gotten around to convicting somebody, I think we all know a lot of people get away with shit that there's no realistic reason that they should be able to get away with, but yet they do. Women have had fucking restraining orders for years and years and years, and it didn't stop their abusers from killing them and shooting them and raping them. So, again, I believe in law, but if we're really honest, the law doesn't quite work all the time, and it does a lot of times seem to work selectively.
It does.
And let's be honest, you know what I mean? Again,
he who has the money has the law.
But it's also dynamics of where you are. Okay? Many ways, this is what's been driving a lot of disconnect. It's been pushing a lot of the racial problems that we have within at least Western culture here in the United States, because there are. You know, most people of color look at the system and can't help but, you know, be like, wow, you know, there's one rule for white people and then there's another rule for black people, you know, and it's fucked up. It should not be. Laws were meant to hold everybody high and low to a standard,
the same
so that the societal structure works. Now, that's not to say that it's all the time, but there's enough of that disconnect that it's created discontent. It's created these elements that fuel aspects of violence and conflict.
Well, I'll tell you what, child molesters that go to jail don't do
Child molesters don't do well in jail.
No.
But listen, you know,
I mean, even the hardened criminals are like, oh,
you know, I don't want, you know, I love the George Carlin analogy about just putting a wall around Kansas and just throwing every fucked up idiot molester, scumbag, Nazi piece of shit in there and just letting them have that.
Escape from New York, all of that. Good old Snake Plissken.
And that is absolutely a valid point. Most of the problem dynamics do stem from the class element. The poor versus the people with money.
The people who have the money have the law.
And that's why there is so much, I guess you could say, spin. And yes, you're right.
And yes.
Girls can be bullies just like an Amber Heard. All right. I think Amber Heard right now is the poster child
for bullies growing up.
For equal rights for abusers.
I had two major female bullies growing up that come immediately to mind. One I had the chance to confront, the other I didn't, as an adult. The one that I confronted as an adult and actually told her I forgave her, blocked me after that.
Yeah, listen, it happens.
I said my piece.
And my sister Suzanne brings up a great point. The legal system does not work all the time, okay? And again, I'm not saying take the law into your own hands, but she just described the thing. Justice system is fucked up. My younger brother was accused, and in quotations, of sexually assaulting his stepdaughter, and is totally innocent. He was accused because he and his wife are divorcing, and he told her he was taking custody of his daughter, who was 8 at the time. So, again, a dynamic like that tends to stereotype.
Yep.
Yep. And again, it creates all kinds of havoc, and it doesn't matter that he's innocent, because that type of stuff tends to automatically poison the well.
It does.
And it's not fair to the children, it's not fair to the fathers, and it is an unfortunate reality. So, yeah, you know, I do sympathize for that.
I mean, we have to walk this crazy balance between the Me Too movement, where we're not afraid to talk about our abuse, and crying, you know, crying wolf.
Yeah, I don't know about, Brother John, I don't know about the executing people for lying about that kind of shit, because, again, you know, all joking aside, yeah, we're sliding into the extreme end of it, and that's just, now you're heading into total fucking chaos.
There needs to be accountability.
Right, there does need to be a line of accountability. But again, unfortunately, with the type of system we have, it's very difficult to prove that in a court of law. Look at all the chaos that we've had going on around with this, that, and, you know, fucking corporations have been polluting and killing and doing shit for generations. And, you know, again, if you've got billions and billions of dollars, you know, getting a $50 fine doesn't mean a whole lot. If you're a single mother who works 3 jobs to take care of your kids, that $50 parking ticket theoretically means you and your family don't eat on Tuesday. You see where I'm going? So there's an imbalance in the system on how certain things are applied. And a lot of that is used very, very targetedly against people with lower income class elements, people of color. So, and again, it's not rocket science. You just got to look at it, you know. And talk about the dynamics, you know, again, you get people who are rewarded for elements of bullying, for that weaponized empathy, that narcissistic You know, whatever it takes to achieve. Or as George Carlin said, let's service the customer deep in their ass.
Oh, hicka. Bend over. Here it comes again.
So, again, sometimes, and that's a great little piece of Shannon's here, she nailed a bank for discrimination. When you filed a complaint, 16 other women stood up for themselves and received justice. Listen,
Excellent.
It does work.
Sometimes.
Okay? It just doesn't work all the time, and unfortunately, because of that dynamic,
But what would have happened if
those dynamics, those things that fall through the cracks tend to be people's lives, people's children.
But what would have happened if those 16 others had decided to stay silent? Would you have gotten the same result?
Well,
what if only 2 people stood up?
The corporate environment,
You know?
having worked in corporate for a few years, and I've seen it firsthand, unfortunately for women, you know, again, if this is your livelihood, this is your career, the elements of retaliation
Oh, yeah. It's
makes
real.
it so that way they don't want to, you know, and it's difficult. It's a fucked up dynamic when you have these elements of a person's life leveraged against them. You know, it's not unlike what Suzanne was describing, you know, with her brother, you know what I mean, you know, wants to divorce the woman but wants custody of his child, and now that sexual dynamic has been leveraged against him.
Yeah.
Just on the basis of nothing. You know what I mean? It's like a fart in the wind. It's just like, oh. But that's part of the dynamic that's been growing within our culture. So we're, you know, again, part of what I try and encourage and what I've been trying to do within the dynamic of the podcast is say, hey, we can and we need to find a middle ground. Okay, we don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to like everything. But there are certain things that affect us all, and we need to do a better job so that way we don't have to constantly be looking back and mourning and grieving and trying to figure out why, you know.
We have the honest conversation. We can disagree on certain things, but there are certain common grounds that we should find.
You know, Dinah puts an interesting question. Is this where paganism can differ from Christianity, the right to get back at a human? You know, again,
I don't really think. I mean, really, Christianity's killed more people.
I don't see Christianity as being a really good example because, you know, it's all contextual. You know, when they go out and, you know, they, you know, really bankrolled a lot of the Third Reich,
yeah.
you know, during World War II. So, yeah, whereas they didn't actually drop the bombs, they were just as, you know, complicit in many elements of the tragedies and you know, the crimes
shows us that organized religion
that went down
tends to be a controlling factor and
right.
a political factor.
Now, granted, again, you know, Catholic dogma says to turn the other cheek, but yeah, that's rarely put into play. You know what I mean? Especially in this day and age. Yeah. I mean, you know, there's a lot of really deep, heated rhetoric coming out from some of the religious corners. You know, I tend to lean more towards, as you would say, more the paganism, which is just more of a balance within
spirituality.
Earth. You know, I don't want to condone violence. I don't want to say, hey, go Batman out there and take shit into your own hands. But also in the same breath, I'm not going to lie. If somebody rolled up, as Suzanne says, I'm a vengeful bitch too. If somebody, you know, comes in there and tries to hurt the people I care and love, I'm not going to pretend that I'm just going to play nice or that I'm going to have a philosophical debate. Now, I say this in the context of theory, hypothetical, okay? And I'm saying it honestly, not to condone it, not to encourage it, but to say the thing that we all have in our head and that we know that if it's in our fucking moment, if it's in our world, yeah, no, I have no intent to become a statistic quietly, okay? It's not going to happen that way. Now, granted, we can only control so much in our lives, but we can to certain degrees, and I believe that this is an important, it's a character trait. Sometimes you have to take a stance. Sometimes you have to defend. You have to fight for the things that you love, the things that are important.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, fucking Christianity is like, you know, they wrote the book on fucking bullying. Listen, in my honest opinion, that is part of the core dynamic of how Christian dogma works. Don't do this, or you're going to spend eternity burning in hell, being ripped apart with no hope of salvation.
Complete fear tactics.
But come over here and drink my blood and eat my flesh, which, you know, to me, you know, that's not that much different than the guy in the raincoat around the corner. Come over here, suck my dick. You'll have a good time.
Do what we say.
I don't know. Did I say that out loud too?
Hell. Yeah, you did. But you know,
listen, and I say that jokingly. I'm not to begrudge anybody's belief in their faith, because I really, again, I don't want to be that wolf. But I have a problem with it, as Diana says, and I think she's absolutely right. There is such a deep history of hypocrisy and bullshit and lies and manipulation and blood, deep blood, that I can't get behind it. I'm sorry. I got, you know, listen, I have more faith in the homeless guy around the corner than I do with many of these quote-unquote institutions.
Look, let me just quantify my view. There's a difference between religion and relationship. When people get into the dogmatic area of religion, I believe it's a problem. If people use their faith as a relationship with themselves and with the divine, I don't care what it is, then they're living, you know, kind of by the golden rule.
And listen, even to some degrees, if they want to minister others, you know, I don't begrudge that. There is a case to be made that is a higher calling.
Yes.
As long as it's done within an open and honest.
But that's not a dogmatic thing. That's an offering. That's a loving. That's a relationship.
You know, there's a difference between, you know, going down into, you know, South America to, you know, to preach to the Indians and help bring them, you know, reading and running water and stuff like that. Or, you know, going out there to enslave them, rape them, and turn them into your basic drone army, okay? Which is what the church did.
Ultimately.
Throughout, 500 or 600 years back in the day. So, you know.
Yeah, Suzanne's like, my sister's new boyfriend was telling
I'm sorry, you know, history is what it is. You can't change it. And that drives a lot of things. A lot of people want, no pun intended, they want to whitewash it. You know, they're like, oh, we don't want to talk. Why? This is the only way that we repeat it. Anybody who doesn't get the fact that this country was stolen from its indigenous people is either bullshitting themselves or has an ulterior agenda. Now, that doesn't mean that you did it, or Barbara did it, or John, or Suzanne, or Shiya. We didn't do it. We weren't alive. It doesn't change the truth, however, that this country was founded on dynamics of slavery and murder.
And we should understand that and talk about it honestly so we don't repeat the mistakes.
Now, they felt that they were justified, because of their beliefs, because of the time period, because of the dynamics that were in play, but it still doesn't change what happened. And no matter how much people want to pretend like it didn't happen, it did. And if we don't learn from it, that's why these things continue to repeat. Now, I'm not saying that that's a justification to do this, that, or the other thing, but also in the same instance, you know what I mean? You really got a fucking thin place that you're standing on if your argument is that we can't even talk about it, okay?
Yeah.
I understand people don't want elements of sexuality. That I get. That's a personal dynamic. But history? Math? Science? No, fuck you. That's academic. Okay? That's where we can find a middle ground.
It happened or it didn't happen. If it happened,
right.
It's history. If it didn't happen,
you don't have to spin it and say, oh, it's Bobby's fault, because it isn't. But also, again, you know, we can't keep pretending that these things somehow are something else. Like there's somehow magically a good side to the Nazis. That's bullshit, man. No. It's bullshit. There is no good side. Okay, this is all rhetoric. This is all spin to justify other things. And, you know, again, and I hate to say it, you know, coming from a long line of conservatives, I am absolutely disgusted by some of the shit that I see coming out of the right. Because this is not based in love. This is not based in any framework of Christianity. Okay? This is absolute insanity. This is exactly what Jesus preached against. He would have thrown these motherfuckers out of the temple on their asses.
You're not lying.
They're the money lenders, okay? That's fucking right there. And I'm not even a fucking Christian, and I know it. You know what I mean? Now, I was raised as a Christian.
So was I.
Yes, I agree that certain elements like QAnon are definitely feeding the dynamic. But here's the thing, and for those of you that don't know, and thank you, Barbara, because this is a little bit, diversion, but it's a good one. This is the problem with the elements of the technology that we have, is that any fucking idiot can put any kind of stupid bullshit out there and pass it along, and some people, for whatever reasons, accept it as truth. Here's the truth about QAnon. QAnon was started by a couple of little failed business marketing assholes who thought it would be a great way to sell merchandise. So they basically started creating the most ridiculous of ridiculous things that they could come up with to get people to buy into it. And
it started as satire.
Right. And it developed into a fad. Not unlike hula hoops and disco, okay?
Oh, disco.
Except this one, involved, satanic Democrats eating children's in midnight rituals, and that JFK Jr. was suddenly going to reincarnate at a Rolling Stones concert. I mean, it's absolute fucking stupidity and insanity. When you really get down to it, about the only thing more stupid and insane is Scientology, but hey, that's just me. You can never miss an opportunity to fuck the Scientologists. But this is the insanity. Now, what does that have to do with the context of what happened today? A little bit of a stretch, but again, when people are being just spun and fed all this chaos, it's like radiation. If you're polluting the water supply, you're polluting the airwaves, you're polluting thought elements, okay, it inevitably leads to some really fucked up kind of Cronenberg type of shit. Right, the flat earth theory started as fucking satire suit. It's like the fucking Onion. I can't tell you how many articles I've seen from the Onion get reblasted on quote-unquote legitimate journalist news sites as like something real and dynamic. Or, this proves George Soros is funding the communist conspiracy to have the Jews take over the world. It's all bullshit, man.
Even the Onion's been writing satire about the satire news becoming more mundane than the real news.
Listen, let me just clue everybody in on a simple little fact. If the Jews even controlled even a small part of what they're all fucking talking about, we wouldn't be living in the shit that we're living in, people. Okay? Don't kid yourself. This is all rhetoric, because here is what most philosophers and students of history and civilizational structures, societal structures, all agree on. These dynamics are meant to keep the dynamics of the majority of the population focused on the internal divisions. Keep us focused on race. Keep us focused on religion. Keep us focused on sexuality while they do the things they do, which are usually greed-oriented. More money, more power, more control, more what they want, less for everyone else.
Don't look behind the curtain.
You know what I mean? Because that is the dynamic. And if you really think about it, that's been at least driving the show here within the United States for a few now. And that's a dynamic that started in the 60s with Vietnam, with the counterculture. It changed a little bit But again, and I can tell you this, and I'm going to do a podcast on it, and I'm going to play you stuff from the early 70s that will blow your fucking mind, okay? And how do I know this real? It's because it's my grandfather. My grandfather, Frank Capel, was one of Joe McCarthy's guys. He was an investigator. He went looking for communists. My grandfather was the guy who wrote the first book, the first dynamic about Marilyn Monroe and the Kennedy brothers, and he put it out there as a communist conspiracy. And it created so much bullshit that before I was born, my father and his family had to go into hiding. True story. And I'm going to do a podcast about this. But the same kind of rhetoric that is spinning around was spinning in the mid to late 60s into the early 70s with places like the John Birch Society. So all this QAnon stuff actually have its roots way, way, way back. It's just been growing and spreading into different dynamics of things. Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bombing was another dynamic that came out of that right wing, and I say this loosely because I don't think they represent the right wing really, but they are part of the fringe extreme elements on the right within the Catholic Christian dogma.
It's just like saying the West
listen, I look at Timothy McVeigh the same way that the fucking 9/11 terrorists, okay? They are religious extremists that believe that their way is the only way, and they're willing to kill as many people as they can to somehow prove their point or create fear. It's the same bullshit. It doesn't matter if they're wearing a fucking turban or a fucking swastika or whatever the case may be. It's a human condition. Leah, great to see you. Yeah, we're talking about the chaos in the world, surviving retrograde, and, you know, some of the dynamics, you know, that are driving some of these aspects, the disconnect that it has.
I'm ready to grab a towel and hitch a galactic ride at this point.
Well, but listen, here is the other thing, and this is the paradox, the double-edged sword. Yes, it's frustrating, it's exhausting, it's not a lot of fun, but if we don't do it, who will? Yeah. And I've talked about this a lot, and I know you've talked a lot about it. I think it's part of what's pushing a lot of the awakenings that are happening within people, because there are some dynamics that are in play that are going to have very serious repercussions and ramifications.
Yeah.
And if we don't do it, if nothing else, if we don't clean up the mess, it's going to fuck us all. And I think just in that basic element, it's like, you know, this is how I look at it. I don't want to clean it up, but I don't want to live in it either. So I'll do what I have to. I'll do what I can within reason.
Somebody else came and shat on the bed, and now we got to wash the sheets.
Goddamn, Amber. Fucking, anyway. And listen, you know, there are a lot of dynamics. I understand, Shannon. I don't want the government involved in my parenting either. And I also believe, like a lot of people, and as you mentioned, that there's no fucking excuse in any reality now with the amount of resources that we have as a society that anybody should be living in the fucking street or starving or any of these dynamics. It's absolutely ridiculous to think that somehow we can broadcast Paris Hilton's pussy across the planet, but we can't make sure that children and old people have a place to sleep and food in their bellies. And with that, I'm going to segue for a minute. I'm going to play, as I mentioned tonight, I'm going to play a couple tracks from my brothers who will be involved with the upcoming stuff, the autism event, et cetera, et cetera.
Let's say quick, Mary, meet Cindy.
Mary. Hello, Cindy. Great to see you. Thank you for joining us, everybody. We're going to come back. I'm just going to segue with a quick track from Broken Past. This is one that they did, and it was really, Tony and theirs, I guess you could say, tribute to veterans, fallen service members. So enjoy this track from Broken Past. It is called Some Gave All. And we'll be back in a couple of minutes to keep talking after that. So yeah, that was broken past. Some gave all. That was their track to honor and, keep a dynamic, a spirit, if you will, alive generationally. My brother Tattoo Tony, is in that video, obviously, as the bass player, but that was his son in there as well, too.
Yeah.
And it's a dynamic, again, Tony is a single father and stuff like that has made it a point, and again, as a parent, I relate to it. It's something he and I have talked about many times over the years, the dynamics that we do pass on to our children, how we teach them, the elements of things that we condition them with in many degrees, teach, show them, but it's also how we live, the examples. Welcome there, Cindy. Great to have you. You didn't ruin anything. You didn't screw anything up. We, like Barbara mentioned, and thank you, Barbara, we had been talking about the dynamics of what had happened in Texas today, and as you said, yeah, we all have been kind of, that healing energy.
A little bit of shock and a little bit of trying to put some kind of sense to the world right now.
And there's unfortunately not a whole lot of sense to be made from these things. So you didn't screw any mood up. You didn't do anything wrong. That's part of what we do here within this podcast is we talk about things.
Yep.
We do music, we do comedy. Sometimes I'll just fart just for the sake of it. Sometimes, Sister Suzanne will, she'll enlighten us about, the joys of beaver anus, And then sometimes the Goblin Queen will just come screaming, running through here naked, just be like, hey, look at me! But that just, that's what we do. But we're all good with it because that is the beauty of strength in numbers.
Yes.
We don't always have to agree, but we can find that commonality. We can find the base dynamics of things that are important to all of us, and I think we can all agree on certain things. None of us wants any child to get shot in a fucking school. Not rocket science, okay? I think this is one everybody can get on the same page.
Yeah.
The problem becomes, well, how do we deal with that? And as part of what we were talking about, and Shannon and Suzanne and Brother John and others have mentioned, it's a tricky dynamic. I tend to lean with others that you can't just take away everybody's guns. It'll never work. Criminals don't follow the law to begin with. They're going to basically say, hey, fuck you, I'm keeping my guns. And they're going to make more money selling those illegal guns to everybody else whose guns got taken away. It's not going to work.
Look at prohibition and what happened with beer and alcohol.
Right. Thank you. Great analogy.
Yeah.
You know what? It doesn't work that way. So we have to have a better way at dealing with certain things. Now, me personally, and some people think that this is overstepping, but I've heard this in discussion. We have a lot of servicemen and women who, when they come back from, a particular tour of duty or, if they do their training here or there, that they come back here and there's not a whole lot of options for them. They have a hard time reestablishing themselves back into society for a variety of different reasons, and there's not a whole lot of things a lot of times that are open. I think, and as John mentioned, that we should utilize this dynamic, especially because somebody who's military, there's a better than average chance that they have at least some training within weapons and stuff like that, more than the average person at least, or I would hope to expect, at least from the military that I knew and grew up with. But be that as it may, that we utilize them to protect our schools, AKA, I don't think the metal detectors are going to make a whole lot of difference, but I could guarantee you 3 or 4 armed military personnel in strategic places around the school that basically it's their job to make sure some fucking idiot doesn't come rolling up and start shooting kids.
True security.
So we could utilize these men and women who have been trained within these elements anyway, for the most part. We can actually make them part of their communities and everything around them, give them a purpose again, and I believe have a much better chance in protecting our schools.
Yeah.
Okay, I tell you what, these little fucking assholes, they're not going to, these will not be soft targets as they are referred to in military terms anymore. Okay? And granted, yeah, we got a lot of fucking schools to cover in that type of mix, but we also got a lot of veterans that need work, that need something to be a part of, to be productive, to be useful. And granted, yes, it will not be perfect, but I think it's a more realistic
it's a great deterrent
approach
and a great,
to try and stop this craziness. Because I tell you what, if you got a couple of people out there that know what the fuck they're doing, none of this would happen. Yeah, listen, again, whatever, Shannon, right, whatever the dynamics, but yeah, I think a better system of school security is going to do a whole lot different, a whole lot better job than any fucking metal detectors ever will. Because again, 9 times out of 10, they come into the schools shooting, okay? Metal detector isn't going to do anything besides make a whole bunch of fucking noise as they're blasting away. But if you've got somebody positioned outside, okay, and granted, it's not always going to be perfect. In the Buffalo...
allow teachers to get gun licenses and take training and keep a lockbox with a gun
but here's the dynamic. And again, somebody say, well, it may not always work. And we saw what happened at the Buffalo Top shooting. The security guard, he shot off with him. The security guard took a stand to try and protect people and engaged with the shooter, and he hit the shooter, but the shooter was wearing a fucking bulletproof vest. Yeah. And guess what? This poor fucking security guy didn't have the same basic tools as an 18-year-old kid, and the kid killed him because of it.
Yep.
Now, again, argument right there. If a fucking 18-year-old kid can get better hardware than the security guy protecting our supermarkets or any of this shit, we've got a problem. A real fucking problem that says, hey, no. Okay? This is not acceptable. Now, again, what else can we do short of, again, making our kids take classes in a sealed time vault that nobody gets in or out?
Right. But we can be the change we want to see in the world with the social responsibility, with protecting children against bullying. We have a young friend at one point that we got quite upset because we found out he was being bullied.
Yeah, it's a tough dynamic. It's not a perfect solution, but I think it's a better one. Cindy makes a great point. It doesn't matter anymore now, unfortunately, with the way technology is. You could shut down every fucking gun manufacturer in the world right now, and guns would still be out in production because, as she said, you can make them on a 3D printer with plastic.
Yep.
Okay? And listen, don't kid yourself. You take all the guns away, and people are just they're gonna make homemade fucking spears and bows and arrows. They're gonna beat each other with rocks. Violence begets violence in that dynamic. Granted, yes, it'll help to be able to curb some of this. And as we discussed earlier, I think certain things should be a disqualification. Hey, Courtney, how you doing? Again, if you're convicted, okay, of domestic abuse or any of that, really fucked up violent behavior, you lost your right. I'm sorry, okay? You can't just freely give it. Now, that's nothing to say that same person won't go out and get one from a fucking criminal or go steal one. But we can at least set a standard that says that we will no longer participate in it. Okay? So that forces them to be able to have to go do this versus being able to just walk into a gun shop and arm up. Okay? Yes, it will not change certain dynamics, but it's better, I believe, than doing nothing. And I think it's the best compromise that we can find, so that way it's not a political argument. That way we're not taking guns away from everybody. Okay, again, it's not like the fear-mongering NRA that, oh, the Democrats are going to take all your guns. No. Just people are fucking fed up. They want something to happen. They want some kind of solution, but we can't find any common ground because there's too much stupidity and chaos. So, yeah, it's just like... It's fucking crazy. Okay, I get it. Right. Courtney, great analogy. Gun is as dangerous as a pencil in the sense it's all about whose hands it's in. Very, very, very beloved fictional character of mine. Took great pride from killing a motherfucker with his teacup.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Shine got a pack of cool menthol
cool and get you a shine.
Get you a shine.
Yes. Violence is innate to the degree that if it's not a gun, it's a stick, it's a rock, it's a bomb. Listen.
John Wick killed somebody with a pencil. Fucking
pencil. Yeah, I dare to say, if I'm forced into the situation, if you're coming in here trying to kill my kid or fuck my witch, I will choke you with my bare fucking hands.
Yep.
Okay? I will literally force my foot up your ass to get to your heart and kick it out your face, if that's what I gotta do. Now, I say that sarcastically in the context. I'm not endorsing violence, and I'm not suggesting that you should stick your foot up anybody's ass to kick their heart out through their face. This is sarcasm. This is meant as a comedic expression of that when shit goes down, people, humans, tend to improvise. I'll just throw that flashback to 2001: A Space Odyssey. The monkey picks up the bone. He's like, "Ooh, oh, 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 smash!"
Yep.
Welcome to fucking evolution, man.
Get your hands off me, you damn dirty.
Listen, I've struggled with it. I have a little bit of training. My father-in-law many years ago was an avid gun owner and made it a point that he wanted me and my son to at least have basic understandings. When I was younger, I did a little bit of hunting. My grandfather taught me stuff. I've also shot with bow and arrow. I've done fencing, aspects of, sword play, but that, and I've also boxed. So I like to believe that I have a decent amount of tactical knowledge. Yes. But I'm also a nature guy. So, I believe that these are important tools to have, notwithstanding to get too far off the beaten fucking path in here.
Hey, I've got a two-handed broadsword, man. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, you're cool like that.
Yeah. The funniest thing when I was moving that and Monkey was helping me move, and I pulled that thing out and held it up, bare blade to the sun and shouted at the top of my lungs, "There can be only one."
Yeah, just unfortunately, it's a Lord of the Rings sword, and they're using a Highlander analogy.
I don't give a shit.
Those of us nerds who know the difference are going to be like, "Yo, you fucked up, SA.
I don't care.
You can't be crossing shit like that, man."
Cross Star Trek and Star Wars.
Fucking Highlander and Lord of the...
I will.
That shit ain't funny, man.
And Star Wars.
You can't cross. Star Trek and Star Wars are two different realities. SA, get your shit straight.
Into the Marvel universe.
But listen, this is the shit that divides people. I mean, it'd just be, something as simple as Star Trek or Star Wars, or my God is better than your gods, or my dick is bigger than yours. Really? Well, I'm going to drop a bomb on you now. You don't have a dick, so how'd that work out for you in the end? Or just, again, in the horrible, and I don't want to make light of it, so I will segue that now. When you have this insanity where, an 18-year-old decide that this is the only available option, you know what I mean? That this act of absolute horror somehow defines something. And I think we all know that over the days to come that it's going to get spun in 38,000 different directions. Again, as I said earlier, and I will say it again, and nobody has breached this, so thank you, everybody. But I and Shiya have made it a point, as my brother Matt Brown and others, that we will not be using his name.
No.
Okay? That is a dynamic that I think is incredibly important. And one of the only things that maybe we can all do collectively to try and make a difference is not give this person any notoriety, any fame. He who shall not be named. Motherfucker. Okay?
So you don't want other people thinking, oh, I can have my 15 minutes of fame if I just...
Because that is, I believe, and Matt made a social media post about it, and I think he's absolutely right. It feeds into the dynamic. It gives weight to this horrifying element, and we know this because we've seen the dynamic since Columbine and everything else that's come since.
Yep.
Okay? So those of you who, like me, who have lived through these dynamics now for a while, this is not the first time we found ourselves in a place. I will also say this, and this is no offense to anybody's political beliefs. Okay, I understand sometimes things can get a little bit weird, and people that we thought knew what they were fucking talking about will say some shit or allude. Somebody said somebody about this, but I'm going to say it point blank, okay? Anybody who fucking even believes for a second that this is some type of false flag thing or pulls like one of these Alex Jones, oh, this didn't happen bullshit, okay? The universe, I am telling you now, the universe will gift a leprosy on you unlike anything seen to man before.
Well,
okay?
there's the monkeypox going around.
These families, okay, are suffering the most insane, horrendous dynamic. There is no context that this isn't real, okay? It's as real as it fucking gets.
Yep.
The reasons almost don't matter anymore because people's children are dead, okay? Yep. Dead. We know people down there, okay? This is not some, again,
this is
bullshit spin around job that's, great for, go on my website and buy tactical gear. Because that's what Alex Jones does, by the way. Okay? He's selling all the insanity stuff. Body armor, tactical gear. Build yourself a cave in the ground so that way when the race war comes, you can defend you and yours. It's bullshit.
Because those Democrats...
Bullshit. Yeah, listen, there's horror, a woman that I know, her daughter was shot some years ago. Those of you that follow my music know that I wrote a song for her in that track called Mama Rocks. And that's what that memorial video and the dynamic of the song is about, is the murder of her daughter and the subsequent damage and collateral effect that it caused on her from that tragedy. As a father, I'm not even going to pretend. I cannot imagine what they are feeling. Again, I'm not going to lie. I would lose my fucking mind. And Courtney, you're right. Life is hard. A lot of people are not taught solid coping skills. Some parents don't even teach their kids anything. Morals, nothing. You're right. You're right. And this is, again, some of where we can, I think, start making a difference. And again, I mentioned earlier, I think this is part of what's driving the awakening that's happening within a lot of people. People are connecting at a different level. They're quitting their corporate jobs and they're becoming their own entrepreneurs. There's a much, much deeper, stronger push into things that were really not that long ago considered outside the box. Psychic, magic, whatever you want to fucking call it.
Metaphysics, energy.
This is
Reiki.
just, again, words that we put on things because we didn't know how to explain it. Just like we didn't know what a cell phone was 50 years ago, or what electricity was 300 years ago. You know what I mean? This is just
my mom and my
evolution.
grandma on the phone saying, wouldn't it be nice if we could see each other when we talk to each other? And then before my grandma died, the FaceTime stuff was a thing. You know?
You know, again, I talk about this a lot. What was magic 200 years ago is accepted science fact.
Yeah.
Today, your cell phone, your computer, whatever device you are now engaging with us on is magic, people.
And my
Because the
teachers-
perceptional dynamic is based on the here and now. We are here in the here and now. So our perspective is those dynamics. But if you remove that and put it in the different contexts, again, very simple, basic elements of things. Medicine was considered witchcraft. They
Yes.
fucking burned women alive for
being
making homemade fucking aspirin, people.
or for being
True
fucking
shit.
midwives and helping women not
Or because they
die
wouldn't give up
and
the
give
pussy.
over.
That's always a great one.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't want to give up the pussy? You must be a witch. We got to burn you.
her. Yep.
But I mean, if that, you know, think about how those dynamics reinforce generations of male toxicity, of just, you know. So again, you know, there are a lot of dynamics within cycles, within conditioning, be it religious or otherwise, that tend to carry over into these other dynamics. Now, I'm not saying that's the case with whoever this person was beyond the fact of a fucking murdering piece of shit. And as a parent, you know what, I need to say this because it really, you know, somewhere there's a parent that's looking, I would hope is looking at this in absolute horror, you know, because, you know, this child was not made in a test tube. He had parents. He had family to do whatever degrees. You know, I was joking around this earlier, and you know, I said it. You know, I don't believe that we can always hold the parents accountable. You know, you can't blame Hitler's parents for what he ended up fucking
No,
becoming.
but
They
if
raised him to
somebody-
be a painter, an artist.
If a parent like somehow deliberately or gave a child a gun, then yeah, I think that should be a thing. So, I mean, it's one of those catch-22s. I mean, you know, there's got to be some punitive element for who is letting these children have firearms. Because I guarantee you didn't have it legally.
Listen, I mean, again, there are so many dynamics. Courtney makes an interesting thing. You know, some of it is, I think, again, an overcompensation to certain degrees because we have, in my humble opinion, become way too sensitive on ridiculous shit.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know what I mean? And don't get me
Everybody's
wrong.
offended by everything.
Racism should not be tolerated. Violence should not be tolerated. Sexual harassment should not be tolerated. None of these things should be tolerated. Okay? But there is a case to be made that we all have, as Courtney says, our own natural given place, talents, and where we should or should not use them. And it's not always what we want it to be. So what ends up happening, it does, as she makes, our differences cripple to the point of judgment and violence because, you know, it doesn't fit with any real framework of society's quote-unquote standard. You know, and this, again, is part of the dynamic. You know, societal standards say you're supposed to look a particular way, you're supposed to act a particular way. You know, a lot of it is smoke and mirrors and bullshit. It creates a horrible image for women, and it creates a horribly toxic image for men. Don't show your emotions. Go grab the pussy. Take what you want. Fuck that. I'm going to get my knife. I'm going to get my shit on. You know what I mean? These things breed, and I say it specifically, they breed apathy.
Yeah.
They breed discontent. And many, many times it sets the stage for a lot of really fucked up dysfunction that now, like a cancer, goes out into Courtney's village and spreads. And then now you got Night of the Living Dead and they're fucking crawling around trying to eat everybody. This is how it ends, people.
unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, again, some of it is a cultural dynamic. You look at a place like Switzerland and Norway, you don't see, to many degrees, the types of problems that we have. And I'm absolutely in favor. I'm a big fan of a lot of how some of those dynamics within the Nordic countries run. I think we could learn a lot from them. I think we could take a lot and apply it in ways that were honest and thoughtful to do a better job for people in general, okay? And again, it isn't a dynamic of, somebody is less than, you know what I mean? That somehow, especially when they're, elements of things that are not in somebody's control, that somehow that defines them, or that they should be penalized. You know what I mean? These are all dynamics. And I said earlier, again, not to be redundant, we need to do a better job. There's no excuse why we can't take care of our own. There's no reason why people should starve. There's no reason why people should be fucking homeless on the streets, okay?
Sure, there's a reason. It's called greed.
All these corporations with all this money, listen, there's gotta be a better way. I don't believe it.
Percentage. I've got to have a $50 million profit instead of $48 million profit.
Ronnie says she lives in San Antonio. She's broken. Her grandgirl stays with her. She's 11. I have to have a large conversation. She would lose her mind to find out my girl got killed. Listen, as a parent, I completely and absolutely relate. I empathize with you. I can't imagine it. And it really is. It's horrible to have to try and have this conversation with a child.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that I look at it. That's one of the things. It's an innocence killer. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. That's not your fault. This is the shitty reality that we all have to face, is that our children have to live in this world with us. So as much as we want to hide the truth from them, it does them no good. Okay? Because the world is not going to give a shit. And more importantly, and again, I hate to say this, knowledge begets ignorance, and ignorance tends to force people into bad situational dynamics. Okay? I'm just saying, And again, I'm not blaming. This is not the point to figure anybody or anything in particular, but a couple of people have mentioned it. You know what I mean? We have a responsibility as parents and just as members of society to teach the children around us better, to be better examples. The old analogy, lead by example. Okay. We need to do a better job. Yeah, I mean, money is definitely one of the core roots of evil. No, listen, you don't need to, listen, this is a big, giant fucking soapbox. I got room for everybody. I built the soapbox.
I like what Shannon said. Well, think about this, too. We have these littles roaming around the world. We've been at war before many of them were born. Then had COVID, and then the news with the Russians, nuclear capabilities. My son asks questions, lots of them. We don't put the news on in my home. It scares them. Then I had the bullies, stressed out parents, solitude, yada, yada, yada. You're right. These kids are going through so much even before 10 years old.
But listen, and here it is. Every generation, everybody believes that their elements are unique. Yeah. And that's not to take away and say that it isn't difficult, it isn't painful. Everything Shannon said is absolutely true. But here is the truth. I know people, especially when I was younger, who grew up through the Depression. And the Depression was fucking horrible. And I knew people who grew up through World War II. Yep. And fucking World War II was fucking horrible. I knew people that grew up through the late 50s, and there was shit that was going on with Korea and this and that and the Cold War. It was fucking horrible. The 60s. I don't even have to, the 60s were an absolute fucking shit show between racial equality, the Vietnam War, fucking multiple assassinations, Martin Luther King, John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Malcolm X. I mean, Jesus Christ. You know, and again, you can follow this. Listen, no offense, I think the 90s were just as fucking scary. It just depends on where you were looking at. A lot of us were looking at the 90s with the Iran-Contra stuff, thinking that we were going to that Israel and Iran were going to go to war, and that was going to be the trigger for World War III.
Yeah.
Because you had the bombings in Lebanon and Beirut through the early 80s. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, this is just the unfortunate reality. We tend to, as humans, become focused by the literal dynamic of what's going on in the moment, the current events thing, and perspective being driven by our experiences with it. Those of us that lived through 9/11, that actually worked in New York City or lived in the New York metro area, experienced 9/11, I think, a little bit differently than a lot of other people did. It was still a horrible fucking tragedy. It was still a fucking nightmare, but there's a little bit different. Just like the people down in Texas right now, when it's closer to home or in your backyard, it definitely makes a little bit more of an impact. It tends to bring it closer.
Yeah.
It's like the closer you get to a fire, the hotter it is, and the more chance you're going to get fucking burned by it. But it also makes it more obvious.
It is to you. The more tangible it is to you, the more impact it's going to have. You know? Courtney, be taught, I think so.
There's a great question that I would like everybody to ponder. I'm going to leave it up in the chat for a moment. We're going to do one more track, and then we're going to come back, and then we'll finish out the conversation. But I'm going to read it out for anybody who's not watching and is just listening. Courtney says, can common sense be taught? Are people born without compassion? Are certain things able to be taught? Only if someone wants to learn it. We could model the example of being a good person, but if someone isn't able to learn it or doesn't want to learn, what do you do then? There is also one bad apple in the bushel, but you know what I mean. I think that is a great context. I think that is a great question and one absolutely worthy of discussion. And again, we will when we come back. So I just humbly, hey, chew on that for a moment. Last track I'm going to do tonight is a track from my brother, Greg Carr Schumann, another old friend, great guy, and another musician that will be involved with some of the things I mentioned earlier that those of you who were not here, maybe who didn't hear, will have to go back to listen to. But yeah, there's some shit going down. There's going to be some live music performances. Yeah, there's a lot coming down the pike this summer. But anyway,
exciting.
This is a track from my brother, Greg. It's an acoustic track. A little bit different speed from my boys in Broken Pass. But Greg and I also do metal stuff. So those of you that know us know that we do all kinds of different music. Sometimes we'll do that folky kind of Americana type of music. And sometimes it will be fucking balls deep Metallica blasting metal. And then sometimes we'll do some bluesy shit or some Richie Havens. Maybe we'll segue into some Jimi Hendrix. And I just use these analogies, as styles. Not that we're playing Jimi Hendrix, because that's a copyright infringement, and I don't want to get the fuck shut down. Yeah. So we write our own fucking music. All this music that you've heard tonight are all original music that's been written by the respective people. Broken Past, Tony Rodriguez, they wrote Some Gave All. Okay, the song that we opened up earlier was Just Like Me, which I wrote and performed. And this song was written and performed by my brother, Greg Carr Schumann. And again, it's called Gas Station Roses. So enjoy that, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Chrome and rust, a little bit older, worked his whole life to scrape by. sad but so pretty, stars in her eyes, seeking fire inside. First sight at a stoplight, they saw what they wanted behind and ahead and took off. All I got is these gas station roses and a tank full of diesel to take you away. You mean so much more than these gas station roses. You're sad but so pretty, I thought of your eyes. Sun and rain and colors on flowers from seeds of a new life beyond. When they drove that road, it never would end. There were smiles and tears all along. They wanted it badly, just couldn't get in. Turning away, he said, all I got is these gas station roses and a tank full of diesel to take you away. You mean so much more than these gas station roses. You're sad but so pretty, I thought of your eyes. And he wanted more and she wanted more. The bright stars began to break, the ups and the downs, the old in and out. I guess some loves just never fade away. All I got is these gas station roses and a tank full of diesel to take you away. You mean so much more than these gas station roses. I'm sad but so pretty, I thought of your eyes. All I got is these gas station roses and a heart full of freedom to take you away. You mean so much more than these gas station roses. You're sad but so pretty, I thought of your eyes. All I got is these gas station roses and a heart full of freedom to take you away tonight.
So yeah, that was Gas Station Roses by my brother, Greg Carr Schumann. Shannon, Courtney, thank you everybody for those great words. Yeah, listen, I've known Greg a long time. He's a great musician. He's a great singer. He's a great father. He's a great guy. It is a great track. Greg produced it himself. You can check him out at YouTube. You can either look up Greg Carr Schumann or look up Dimeless Classics, Volume 1. And he has that stuff out there. Check him out. You can give him a like, a subscribe, and you know what I mean? Definitely check him out.
I'll tell you, not only is he a great musician, but he's a great guy. I got to meet him at the birthday party for
Yes,
your
that's where some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Listen, that may, again, there are certain things that are in development, and when we're dealing with aspects, and I'll just say this before we talk a little bit, finish out what we were. I don't actually have a link for him, but
Shannon, if you'll message me, I'll make sure you get the
link. Shannon, if you message Shiya, I actually don't have a link for him, but I should actually get that.
Yeah, we should.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
something that I didn't even think of, because a lot of times it's just really difficult to do that within the scope of the podcast. I don't do the heavy integrated, type of stuff.
But if you don't want to search for him, just go ahead and send me a message. I'll make sure you get the
Yeah.
link.
But I'll make it a point. Thank you, and that's a great point. I'll get it in here and get him a little thing, so that way we can, people can actually get to him and check it out more directly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Listen, you can get it for free. Greg's another one of those guys. This is available on YouTube, and it's available for free. So yeah, the only thing, you just people share it and like it, you know what I mean? But here's the thing. Greg's one of the guys that I am working with musically. So there are some things that are in play. And again, the nature of the music industry and copyright and yada, yada, yada. Let's just say that very soon we will be doing some official release stuff that we can officially talk about and say, hey,
guess what?
This, that, and the other thing, this, that, and the other thing, this, that, and the other thing. So there's a lot of stuff in play. Yeah, you're going to see more, Greg.
Gonna see more
okay.
of him. More of the wolf.
And there's going to be new music coming down the pike.
There might even be a monkey involved in all of this.
Yeah, there's a monkey involved with it.
Yeah.
There's a tattoo guy involved. There are some
there's other running around watching them all do it.
There are other people involved in different levels of things.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Cindy. Listen, again, this is also part of the dynamic of why we do some of the degrees what we do. Why all the music that I do is available for free. I made it a point when I started this. I said it at the beginning, and I meant it to hold true. This music is not meant to go out in a commercial sense. In other words, I'm not making a fucking penny off of any of this stuff. And there's a better than average chance that this next album will be done exactly the same way. Now, I will make physical copies available for people who want to actually purchase it. But again, it's not going to be in the dynamic of a record label or like Apple Music or any of that kind of stuff where people have to fucking pay for it. Listen, I don't begrudge other musicians. They have to make a living. I get that. I'm cool with it. I understand. I'm blessed by what Shiya and I do, and part of what my magic is. And it's just really important to me that I want the music to be available to people regardless, okay? Because not everybody has money to spare. And I grew up in a context where radio was, that's where I heard the first songs. And the ability to just be able to listen to music without it costing fucking money. Now, granted, I had to have a radio, but do you understand where I'm going? If you had a radio, you could listen to anything. You know what I mean? Granted, you didn't always get to hear what you wanted in the moment. You needed a tape deck or a record player or any of the, the dynamics. But, again, it wasn't like, and again, the Beatles sold millions of albums. I get it. I understand. But they played the Beatles on the radio for those of us who couldn't afford to go buy a Beatles album. Okay, and that's the simple, honest truth. Not everybody can afford it. And it's a fucking tragedy, in my humble opinion, that people should be denied that simply because they have, it's just fucking horrible. I'm like the old Coke commercial. I just want to give everybody a Coke and a smile. Okay? I don't want anybody to fucking starve. I don't want anybody to shoot each other or fucking blow each other up. I don't care who's fucking who, as long as you're not trying to fuck me or mine. You know what I mean? We can all hang out, agree to disagree, and, maybe laugh a little bit, have a little fun. As Shannon says, a little bit of passion. You know what I mean? It's good. Nice. Courtney's like, I used to host a radio show on my Talk Boy Home Alone version recorder. Record your little set, then sing and then record your station music. Well, the copy, don't do that shit on Facebook now. Facebook, you even breathe wrong. Facebook's like, nope, you're in fucking Facebook jail. Yeah. And Courtney, listen, one of the dynamics that Shiya and I are going to expand on, and this will be available to everybody, and this is just part of the things that we haven't been able to really talk about, quote unquote, officially, but hypothetically, theoretically, Shiya and I are working to expand on some of the technology aspects of how we do the lives and the podcast. And hypothetically, within that particular context, will allow us to have dynamical elements, say, like, we're having a podcast, and Courtney used to host her own radio show, and, we kind of know her and stuff, so we get Courtney on, and we have ourselves an old school Z100, kind of Howard Stern, Robin Givens back and forth kind of dialogue.
There you go.
And we actually get to hear Courtney get in the game. She gets to throw that shit out there. Yeah. See where I'm going? I'm just saying hypothetically. It could very easily happen, because I know a lot of people have stuff to say. Now, granted, keep in mind, I obviously cannot just open the floodgates and be like, hey, everybody, this is now an open chat cast. Because somebody will fuck that up. I'm sorry.
Will always fuck it up.
My first default is love, but I'm an old wolf. I've seen enough in my day that if you leave a door like that, and I'm not saying it'd be any one of you, it would be, some fucked up troll that would run in there singing the cock song, you know what I mean? Or, doing some kind of fucked up Mel Brooks version of Mein Kampf or God knows what.
People always come up with something weird.
Again, all things being what they are, some things, I believe, are good for us to explore. We need to hear other people's voices. We need
to be able to have a safe, honest conversation about some of the difficult things.
Well, Greg and I talked about this earlier, and he had said something, and it's very true. We don't want to ever become so fucking conditioned, so apathetic that we don't think that maybe we don't know what we're talking about. Maybe we're not right. You know what I mean? Maybe this doesn't taste as bad as it looks. maybe, again, just that little dynamic of framework. And I believe conversation does that. It allows us to explore it. And even in something as horrible as what happened today, we can find a common ground to talk about the dynamics of some of what's driving it. How does it make us feel? Our fears as parents, as Americans, the things that reflect beyond it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it isn't a, hey, let's point the finger and blame somebody. And more importantly, also, it isn't like, let's give this piece of shit, any notoriety out of it. Again, to close out the show, thank you for everybody. Nobody here, and everybody followed that, and I thought that was really beautiful.
Nobody here has said the name,
please,
shall not be named.
To whatever degree you can, and I think, again, this is something that we can all unite and do. If we just simply refuse to allow his name to be put into play, all right, in many ways, we're taking at least a little bit of control back. I get it doesn't change what happened. Yes, it's symbolic. But maybe, just maybe, that little act of symbolism, a spark, could grow. And maybe from that spark, we could literally change the dynamic. And if we could change the dynamic, doesn't that mean that maybe we can save lives? And I think, if nothing else, again, for those of you who have people that you love, maybe children, maybe friends, whatever the case, I think it's a worthy investment to at least try. Again, no promises, no guarantees, but it's better than nothing. And I think we can all do that to whatever degree. Social media, in the fucking office, any context where this fucking asshole's name comes into play, shut it down.
Yeah.
Go out from here and tell them the wolf sent you. I will take responsibility. Okay? I won't bail you out of jail. Okay, so the police don't do anything fucked up. But go on social media and let people know and say, hey, guess what? We're not going to say his name. Okay? Remove his name from the equation. He who shall not be named. Okay, this is, again, something we can all do, just like when we boycott a company because they're selling poison, or we fucking cancel a comedian because he keeps pulling his dick out in inappropriate places. We can change and shut down these little mass murdering monsters, okay? And not give them names, not let them become unsung heroes, leper messiahs, whatever the fuck you want to do it. Deny them that. Take it away and say, guess what? No, nobody's going to remember you because you're nameless. And bury them in the back where they belong. I'm sorry. Again, I know that there's people somewhere that this person was somebody's child, okay? But it's not fair to the other children, and it's not fair to the rest of us within the framework of a society. I'm sorry. The lesser of the two evils, the greater good. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. Again, however you want to spin it, yeah. It has to be done. This cannot be tolerated, okay? No, we cannot sacrifice our children because none of us want to say or do anything. Granted, again, I know they're not simple answers or simple solutions, but something is better than nothing. And I believed, and I credit this again to Matt Brown, who went out there first thing on social media and was just like, basically, don't say his fucking name. Don't do it. And anywhere that you see it happen, shut it down. Make it a point. Again, this is the beautiful thing, at least for those of us, again, who live and believe in a concept of free speech. You have a voice. You're allowed to use it. You're allowed to express yourself. As long as you don't express yourself in a way where Facebook takes offense to it and shuts you down. But you can say, hey, do not speak his name. You can express support and convey that aspect to the people around you to whatever degree. Now, granted, don't get me wrong. Don't get into bloody battles over it. People are going to do what they're going to do. But I believe, and I don't usually push this dynamic, but I think this one is worth pushing because we're just, again, there's too much fucking violence. There's too much of this chaos, and I think a lot of them are really, that they're on these weird ego trips, you know what I mean? That they're off into this alternate reality type of thing. And, again, if we can shut down that energy, if we can take away a little bit of that dynamic, I think it's something good. So, I don't know. What do you think there, my sexy witch?
I mean, I'm posting on social media. I'm not going to speak the shooter's name. Who will join me in this?
Well,
that's what I'm doing.
I mean, again, to some degrees, we're talking about him, and that's going to be the semantical argument. Well, you're still talking about him. Yeah, of course we got to talk about it because it's fucking horrible, man.
There's power in the name. There really is.
Yes, and I believe in that dynamic.
Yeah. So
and Courtney says it. Pick their brain and try to learn, not for power, to make it okay. What terrible things this person did, rather than we do maybe to try more understanding what we can anticipate to avoid these horrible acts. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we don't get a lot of cases, as Suzanne said earlier. More times than not, these are also acts of suicide by cops.
Yes.
This is like the ultimate checkout dance where they're going to kill a whole bunch of people and go out in a blaze. So they're not around usually after this type of thing. And listen, I hate to say it, but if there's any case where you want the cops to use lethal force, I'm sorry, it's in the situation where there's an active gunman shooting children. I mean, that's dumb. I mean, again, say what you want. I feel bad. I don't want anybody to die. But this is simple common sense. If you've got somebody with a gun shooting children.
Apparently not just a gun.
Okay.
Body armor.
He deserves to get fucking shot. Well, that was the kid in Buffalo.
No, this one had body armor.
Say that in more detail. This is the horror of it.
The gunman had body armor, a rifle, and a backpack, and made it into several classrooms. That's
again,
news. Body armor.
Yeah, I mean, we can study their past, sociology and psychology. Listen, I am a huge advocate of it because right now and that's a whole nother podcast argument. And listen, you and I should get together and do a podcast on it because you definitely get it. Listen, we live in a society now that everything is drug driven.
Yeah.
Pharmaceutical companies have basically taken over every aspect of what used to be psychology and mental health treatment. And it is now just a shop mart of whichever fucking suite of drugs is just gonna, make you go away. So they don't actually have to, figure out what the fuck is going on or do anything more than, create another generation of walking zombies. And I say that because I watched it kill my kid's mother. So I've lived that personally. And nobody, I've watched too many people go through this dynamic. I've worked with people for too many years, both as a therapeutic counselor and in direct support through aspects of recovery or just simply within the dynamics of family and life. Yeah, welcome to the wonderful world we live in, at least within Western culture. Which again begs back to a case that we really should take a closer look at places like Norway and Switzerland. It's not that they don't have problems, but they don't have the kind of societal problems that we do. And, that might be something that we should start looking at. Might want to have a conversation someday. Maybe it is a conversation we'll have.
It is a conversation.
Yeah, listen.
That should be had.
Again, I'm not sure what we can do to make it stop. That is really the paradox, I think, of a lot of this, because it is now reflective population, simple numbers game. You know what I mean? If you look at it from that dynamic, the numbers are not on our side, especially when you factor in all the different variables that are creating and in many ways driving the disconnect, the conflict. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's not necessarily, there's got to be accountability. It's not about making excuses, okay? There are mitigating factors that we can start to learn to identify. If we're looking at what maybe...
Taking money out of politics? I'm sorry, did I say that out loud?
But if we're looking at like this kid, the shooter and his life, and they're going to pick it apart and say, oh, he was bullied or whatever, maybe, what's the point of that? That we learn where some of these triggers are. There was a discussion earlier that we really didn't get into about how arts and other programs are being taken away from the schools. And so kids are not having the outlets for their emotions, for their feelings. These are the things that we can tangibly do.
Well, that's because most school boards spend most of the budgets on strippers and coke.
Wait a second. If we're going to Texas,
anybody who doesn't know, that's what most of your school boards spend your money on, are strippers and coke.
Unless it's Texas, and then it's all football. Friday Night Lights is a thing.
Yes, and cheerleading
is a thing. Cheerleading, football.
We can't have our kids going out there without having that critical life skill cheerleading under their belt.
And of course, our biggest problem.
And if that sounded sarcastic and a bit fucking edgy, probably. Now listen, that's not, again, I understand for young women. I get it. I'm not trying to take it away.
No, cheerleading is extremely competitive.
And I'm not trying to take it away from young men, because I do understand that it's contextually, it's part of our society. Oklahoma's football. I get it. Listen, I get it. But, and this is a heavy but, I like big butts, and I won't deny.
Let me shake my butt for you.
But it cannot be at the expense of academics. We cannot send our children. Listen, we can't send our children out into the world thinking that they're just going to get famous on American Idol, or they're going to blow somebody like Kim Kardashian and end up with their own reality show.
But it's not.
Because that's not how it really fucking works.
It's the other programs too, the other arts, the other expressions, wood shop and stuff like that for people who are good with their hands, mechanic shop.
Listen, when I was a kid, they had photography as a class you could take.
I did cake decorating for a while, and I'm pretty darn good at it. If I ever picked it back up again, I'd probably be a little rusty, but I think I could do it. Home ec they don't even do anymore.
Yeah, Courtney, I'm not trying to knock the cheerleaders per se. It just, unfortunately,
Courtney,
again,
I'm from Texas too. I grew up in San Antonio. So,
you know what I mean? That we cannot allow this to be the drive. We have to, and many people have made mention of this. And Jennifer, welcome. It's great to see you, hon.
Hey, Jennifer.
Kind of missed you as you kind of came in there. Yes, in Texas, the kids that play sports are treated like kings and queens of the school. That's
Same
a
thing with the
fucking
cheerleaders.
disconnect. Okay, that's a disconnect. We're creating a bad foundational element, in my humble opinion, that does not carry over into the rest of the world. It just doesn't. Okay? Again,
And I'm sorry, I know a lot
we
of
can
people
balance. Listen,
my
I'm not
age-
trying to take it away because I don't think that's fair to the kids. But I've also seen it, again, as a parent, okay, having participated to some degrees in sports when I was younger and my son participating to different degrees through the years, that some of this is absolutely ridiculous. We're driving young kids into adult situational elements.
Well, I'm going to say this as a Texan.
That's
Not even just the adult situational elements, besides the pressure that is put on these kids in these sports arenas. Okay, I will talk about that. As a Texan, I have had people that were my age that have had lifelong physical, medical problems because they had so much pressure on them to perform in sports as a teenager. And they injure themselves as teenagers that go with them for the rest of their lives because that's how much sports, football is in Texas.
And Cindy makes a great point. And this is the difference between our generation, I think, to some degrees, and the newer generation. Back in the day, you kind of had to. As a cheerleader, you still had to take the other classes. It wasn't like cheerleading was an out. And it was the same thing with sports. And even more importantly, you had to maintain your grades to be able to play in sports. And you had to take at least 1 or 2 shop classes. You know what I mean? So these dynamics, at least within the educational system as it was before, granted, we didn't have fancy computers and things like that, but we dealt with a lot of practical elements of, again, mechanics, design, art, cooking, whatever it was, and they were elements that you could actually, no offense, cheerleading notwithstanding, I mean, I guess, and no offense, Cindy, this is not a reflection of you,
It is,
but cheerleading to me seems like it's like a gateway drug to pornography. Like you start as a cheerleader, then you're a stripper on the pole, and the next thing you know, you're blowing Ron Jeremy. You know what I mean? That's the progression.
It's
I
because
see.
the entire aesthetic of cheerleading is.
But it's a sexual dynamic. It's just basically sending young girls out in skimpy clothes to dance around. I mean, as a guy, I'm sorry. We want to talk about male toxicity. We have to stop beating it.
Yeah.
No offense.
None taken.
What happens to a bunch of fucking horny young guys that are standing around watching a bunch of women in seductive clothing with little to imagine bouncing their shit around and, hey, don't you want to look at my titties bouncing around? No, it's not sexual. Watch while I bend over. There's lots more to see. You see where I'm going?
I mean, literally,
It's fucking ridiculous.
They're doing stripper routines at pep rallies.
Yes.
On the dance.
Thank
teams
you.
And stuff.
And I don't mean that to really. I don't want to disparage. I don't want like the cheerleading association to come after me like
And I've seen
I'm
the
not-
elementary school kids do it.
And as Cindy said, you weren't one of the typical ones. And I know a lot of girls that were cheerleaders that just supported the guys, in football because that was what young girls were encouraged to do. If you wanted to be part of the crowd. And Cindy, correct me if I'm wrong, if this was your reflection of it, because I grew up, I think, in the same degree that you did. You could still be a bad girl, but it was also part of the dynamic of social acceptance. You know what I mean? Not every girl got to be a cheerleader. Not every guy got to play on the football team. Not every guy was able to play guitar. You know what I mean? It goes back to the dynamic we were talking about earlier, that we all have our unique abilities, and within societal circles, there are stereotypes and there are constructs.
Yep.
You're supposed to look a particular way. The girl with the bigger titties obviously gets more attention. Whereas the ugly girl who's flat with buck teeth, I'm sorry, you know, and it's wrong. You know, it is. And I don't mean to be offhanded and make a joke of it per se, but I say it in this element to try and convey the message, the dynamic. We have to do a better job in these things. And some of it is as simple as these types of dynamics. You know, again, in my humble opinion, if you want to deal with male toxicity, you have to start removing some of the dynamics that drive it. You got to remove these elements of things like sexualizing children, okay? You have to remove the dynamic that there's absolutely no accountability for these things. And that's what we have. And so men are just like, again, I hate to say it, but when you have people out there whose slogan is grab them by the pussy, you know,
I mean, that's a whole,
you know, and I'm just, you know, again, as a father and as a man, that to me, it's just like, no, man, you gotta fucking go. You cannot represent the rest of us. And again, I say this coming from a long line of conservative right-wing Republicans. My grandfather wrote the fucking book on it. Okay? I believed in people like John Huntsman and John McCain. I didn't agree with everything that they did, but I respected them for their integrity, for their values. They never promoted racist bullshit. They didn't buy into the insanity. They served their countries. Even when John McCain went up against Barack Obama, he made it a point to be like, he's a good man. He's a Christian. He's not all this other stupid shit. He publicly took a stand to say, you know what? Honor, truth is more important than winning.
Yeah.
Okay? Honesty has more of a place than politics. And I say that again because I think many of my fellow brothers and sisters thought the Kool-Aid was something that it wasn't. It is what it is. Listen, it happened.
But it was actually wine.
Listen, this is a testament to how good a bullshit artist he is. And make no mistake, he is the king of bullshit. He has spent a lifetime crafting bullshit. He bankrupted an entire fucking city. And he has stiffed more contractors and working class people than most corporations, okay? Mm-hmm. All the while dancing through the type of shit. Okay,
but I mean,
you know what I mean? You know, you want to talk about a character like a Jeffrey Epstein. Don't look much further to the people he hung out with on both ends of the spectrum. There are no coincidences, okay? I'm sorry. It's not a Republican thing. It's not a Democratic thing. It is a human thing. Yeah. Some men are scumbags, okay? And they wear different masks because they want you to believe what they're selling. That's what a narcissist does. Yeah. He or she will sell you whatever bullshit reality you need that fits into the bigger picture. Hi. Welcome to my reality. Now come sit on Santa's dick. Okay? Yes, it's horrible, but that's the horror that we live in. And I use horrible analogies. Yes. And I'm sorry if that triggers anybody. I'm laughing because, well, no, listen again. Part of me doesn't, you know, part of me just like, listen, this is the truth. And I know it's a bit edgy sometimes, but, you know, especially on a day like today when people's lives have been absolutely fucking shattered. For me, and I'm going to be absolutely honest, it's my coping mechanism. This is how I process and deal with the horror.
Shit show reality.
Okay. So that way it doesn't carry over into other things. And I don't, again, say that to be disparaging. I don't say it to be dismissive. I say it to be honest, because we all have to live within it. We all have to dance within the world. And I don't think any of us want to be fucking collateral damage. You know, it's not a choice a lot of times. Some of it is just, you know, we'll be honest, sometimes it's just fucking pure survival. We got to do what we got to do in the moment and stuff like that. But we have to, and again, my last redundant statement of the night, we have to find a way to do better. We have to talk about it. We have to set, I think, a little bit better standard. Actions actually mean something. Words don't mean shit without the action behind them. We need to get away from chaotic elements of crazy ass fucking conspiracy theories and, you know, somehow that, you know, if we just plant 10 billion trees, you know, everything will be okay. Again, it's something in the middle. And traditionally, what has worked within this country is that common denominator within the middle. When people want to talk about the dynamics of what really keeps this country functioning, what has been able to allow this country to become the leader in many aspects of things, which of course we are slipping because we forgot where we came from.
Yeah.
No coincidence. But that dynamic was based on people finding the middle ground. So we don't always have to agree on things, but we did agree on the common good elements, that the common sense elements, that be like, okay, we can't keep putting mercury into the water.
Oh, why ever not?
Oh, well, because people are dying.
Well, then let's
and then there
not
won't
do
be
that
anybody
anymore.
left to make me breakfast in the morning.
Oh,
Okay,
I guess
so
we
it's
should
probably in my
agree.
best interest. You know, again, common sense. Listen,
Look.
again, I think it's kind of a tragedy what ended up happening to Rand Paul. You know, some years ago, there was hope for the guy. His father was somebody that, you know, some of us actually looked at some degrees as maybe being an alternate party type of guy. But, and this is the shitty reality, at least in my humble opinion, within politics. Both sides are contaminated by money, by special interest and corporations. So we don't really have politics anymore. What we have is called theater.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of talking, and it's a lot of acting, and it's a lot of finger pointing, and a lot of yelling, and a lot of reality TV stunts to see who can get the most attention, who can get the most fucking hits on their fucking social media page or whatever. And basically, it's all about protecting what corporations want and have always wanted, is to do what they want at our expense. They want us to work more for less money with little to no protections. They want to jam us all into these little fucking rat holes so that way they can use the property that, you know, we could actually put the homeless in because we need more golf courses or we need more country clubs.
Careful, honey. You're speaking so much truth. You might get
Oh,
canceled.
and listen, that's not to say that we shouldn't have dynamics. You know, people who want to play golf. Well, listen, I play golf. I don't have a problem with that. But again, how is it that we can do that, but we can't just feed and give everybody a place to live? You know, granted, yeah, maybe it won't be the Taj Mahal, okay? But we can figure it out, okay? We really could. It's not that difficult. It just takes commitment. It just takes a little bit less greed. So with that, we're going to call it a night. Thank you again, everybody. I really appreciate everybody taking the time. Again, heartfelt sympathies for the families out there. This is, again, just a really, just another one of them ugly shit sandwiches. And listen, you know, the past couple of weeks have been that. You know, we live right outside of Buffalo, and you know, there was a horrible shooting there. So, you know, that this is This is an unfortunate dynamic that we're all going to have to continue to live in, which I'm all the more reason why I think it's important that we figure some shit out. So with that, until next time, I'm going to close it out with one of Shiya's favorite tracks, because she calls it her shit-talking track.
I call it my boundaries track.
Well, it is a boundary track.
You're going to do.
Keep on talking. This is, again, me and Matt, my monkey, and Tony Rodriguez and Jeff Thal. It's another one of the tracks from the Music from the Garden album. Feel free to download it. It's available on YouTube. So again, please come on out, like, share. That's what it's there for. You know, everybody who subscribes to it, again, it's not like you're getting on some fucked up mailing list. It just helps us in the algorithms. Share the music. If you like a track, go ahead, share it. Okay? If you don't like sharing it because of YouTube and say you want to put it on your MP3 player or your Kindle or whatever the fuck it is you use, just let Shiya and I know, and we'll get you an MP3 copy.
Absolutely.
At no cost. Okay? It's there for you. So feel free to use it, please. It helps us, and it's part of what we do. So with that being said, we're going to close it out with Keep On Talking. Shiya will be on tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for...
What the fuck? Wednesday.
What the fuck? Merry meet, merry part. May we meet again. Blessed be. Yes. I know you do use that one.
Well, actually, yeah, I use she's using a slight variation, but I always say marry meet, marry part until we marry meet again.
That's right. That's a little bit different.
Everybody
has their own little...
Yeah.
But that's a beautiful thing about
Everybody
ritual.
has their own version of it. Some people say...
And by the way, that's how you survive the retrograde. Yes. We completely, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Retrograde basically landed in Texas today.
Yeah.
So, no pun intended. So, until next time, folks, again, Shiya will be on tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for What the Fuck Wednesday. I'll be back next Tuesday for the podcast. Until then, peace out, my friends. Love each other. Know that you are loved.